5th Avenue, corner 13th Street. You are in a, at least in my opinion, beautiful surrounding. We could also host a fashion show. So, for example, where I'm currently standing, all of this seems to be hydraulically liftable and sinkable. And I'm very happy that we are welcome here. So, there is 2 people who will address you who are in their functions attached to this venue here. One of them is our local liaison, Ed Keller.
Hi everyone. Just want to welcome you to Parsons and the new school. My name is Ed Keller. I direct the Center for Transformative Media here at the new school. We're a small interdisciplinary think-do tank. We host events like this. We have a great relationship with Punctum Records and Open Access Press. We do philosophy conferences, and we do a lot of collaborations with external entities like the Miami New World Symphony in the past few years through our design technology program. I've known Ben Goertzel since the 1980s, actually, so the connection to HOAI this year is through Ben, and decades of conversation that we've had about AI, cognition, consciousness, spatial conditions that lead to consciousness, and so forth. In 2011, we hosted the Transhumanism Meets Design Conference here with Ben and Humanity Plus. So this is an ongoing relationship and dialogue with the folks around HOAI. Sven Travis is going to give some welcome remarks today. Sven is the former dean of the Art Media Technology program here at Parsons and the founder of the MFA Design Technology program, which he currently directs. He has an incredibly deep history over 25 years with Parsons, the new school, which I know he doesn't want me to read, so I'll just let him take over from here.
Thanks, Ed. He took away his phone, so I can't read it myself. Hi, everyone. I want to second Ed's welcome to the new school, and from my perspective to Parsons, where events like this are increasingly of importance to us. Years ago, the Design and Technology program, which I founded and once again now run, is about 20 years old. Years ago, 15 years ago, I used to make efforts to bring in aspects of AI into the curriculum. And it was poo-pooed a little bit. A lot of the initial coders who were working, I don't think they were believers. Things have changed drastically during the past 15 years, and increasingly we have students entering the program from a variety of backgrounds who are interested in the very types of issues, broad issues that a conference, a get-together like this, which I know represents a number of different fronts, are dealing with. So we've seen a lot of evolution in terms of the way a program like Design and Technology at Parsons interfaces with areas that, when it was founded 20 years ago, there wouldn't even have been a considered crossover. Design and Technology is a large, very broad, and a little bit messy program at Parsons, and instead of trying to describe it all, what I do want to say is, if you, in looking at the various topics of this conference, wonder what the relationship is to this institution, the new school and Parsons, apart from the Center for Transformative Media that Ed runs, you absolutely want to be looking right at Design and Technology. A lot of people looking, in particular, at artificial intelligence tend not to be looking at art and design schools, but we're entering an era where I think that's changing. Students in programs like Design and Technology are becoming highly competent programmers, engineers to some extent. Some of them are coming from the worlds of computer science and engineering before they even enter the program. So we very much look forward to conversations like this continuing. I am thrilled that the conference here is at the new school and what I see as a very comfortable fit. Once again, I'm not sure we would have found that 20 years ago. So that's a very cool thing. And I would urge anyone who has any inclination to get involved with a wonderful school like Parsons to get in touch with me, get in touch with Ed. We are constantly taking on new research initiatives. There's a lot of interest here and a lot of skills that can be effectively applied to a variety of projects. So please reach out if you're at all inclined or curious. I want to end with a funny vignette. My father was an artificial intelligence researcher. He was one of the founders of the computer science department at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It still lives in Madison, and I was out to see him about 10 days ago. And the first thing he said to me when I walked in the door was, "What is this conference you're hosting at your university?" And I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I actually did. And he said, "You better get in touch with what's going on at your institution because there's some great stuff happening there." And I said, "Okay." I didn't tell him that Ed had actually asked me to give welcome remarks, but he was thrilled in going online and looking through the agenda. This is a man who spent much of his career in research, in academic research, convinced that, I'm not sure I'd say that he was convinced of being a failure, but he lived through the era where so many of the hopes for artificial intelligence were dashed. And although I think he remains an active proponent of the entire field, the entire domain, it is doubly thrilling to him, now at the age of 85, to be looking around and seeing this kind of activity. So I laughed when he admonished me for not being aware that this was a very important enterprise going on here, but I did want to pass on Larry Travis's greetings to all of you, and his final comment was, "Keep on with the good work." So with that, and hello to my father, somewhere 1,000 miles away, I will turn it over to Alexi, who will introduce the next events. Thank you.
Hi everybody. The following keynote turned out to be the first keynote contributed by the Biker conference. And so this is a good opportunity to declare the Biker 2016 officially open. Please welcome to our event. My name is Alexei Samsonovich. I am the general chair, and I would like to also introduce to you Alexander Panov. Please stand up. Who is the co-chair of Biker 2016. If you have any questions, he can answer you. Now, I would like to make a couple of announcements. First of all, we have the next Biker conference happening in Moscow in 2017 in August. And we will try to make the banquet on this tower. Seriously, we can actually pay for your trip. But you need to talk to me individually regarding that possibility. There are some caveats here. Now, speaking of the banquet, those of you who have tickets, you need to bring them to the restaurant and give them to me. The last thing I want to mention, tomorrow at 3:30 after the last keynote, we will have a press conference. Everybody is welcome to attend. And so I am looking forward to seeing most of you in Moscow in the next year. Now I give the word to Scott to introduce the next keynote. Thank you.
And now that we've gone full circle, thanks again to Ed, thanks again to Sven, and it's, as I said, I love the venue and it's great to be welcome here. Back to science. So, our next keynote will be by David Aha. David is the head of the Adaptive Systems section of the US Naval Research Labs AI section. You got your PhD in 1990 from UC Irvine, I think with Pat Langley, right? Okay, with Dennis Kippel, I stand corrected. It was on instance-based learning. You've basically worked in every kind of learning possible ever since. Machine learning, case-based reasoning, statistical relational learning, transfer learning, and basically it's like X learning with X pretty much all quantified. and successfully worked on it, which is even more remarkable. Today we'll be talking about goal reasoning, but David also has a second personality in which he's doing a lot for the community. So I think you were roughly on 19 PhD committees thus far. You've been organizing lots of events, you've been on the AAAI Executive Council, and there is one thing I personally very much love to point out. You are the chair of the AAAI 17 Doctoral Consortium. Well, I love doctoral consortia because I know how valuable an experience they can be for young researchers. So AAAI will have one next year. This charming gentleman is the chair. Look at the smile. You want to be there, right? Good. David, the stage is yours.
So for all those who are coming for the fashion show, I'm very sorry. Okay. Well, I've got a challenge for you. I've got a topic area which I've been pursuing for longer than this building has been here, apparently, or at least this room. And it's called goal reasoning. And I recently did a bit of a survey on it, and I'd like to describe it to you. I'm so tired of describing projects for my own group, and I hope that doesn't pose a problem. I'd be happy to talk with you more about some of our own work on the subject in more detail later. But I've got a lot of colleagues to thank, and I'll do so at some point in time. And I should set expectations, because it's very challenging to give a talk here when you're not as familiar with the organization as you should be. So, is it relevant? Well, we'll find out, I suppose. It's certainly not bio-inspired, and I'm not going to be talking with you about a cognitive architecture per se, but I will be highlighting something that many cognitive architectures already do. What we're interested in doing is providing a focus on one type of task that cognitive architectures tend to have interest in. With respect to AGI, all bets are off. There is some interest in regards to integration, and I'll leave it at that. With respect to NESI, we're not really focused on neural methods. Now, I wish I had invited everyone at NESI to come to the Deep Learning for AI workshop that I put on with Alan Wagner just this past week at ICHCAI. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that later on, but there's not perhaps as much here as there should be to grab your riches, but we'll see. So this is a bit of a reflection talk. I was invited to give a talk at the most recent Goal Reasoning workshop, which was held a week ago Saturday. I've been on travel for a long time, it seems. And it was one where I didn't want to repeat in front of my small community what I've been doing again and again, because besides there were going to be some presentations there. What I wanted to do was try and get a grasp as to where we are and make sure that people understood, if they haven't been able to keep up on it, and address issues as to where we should be going. And hopefully I'll get that point across here. So, having said that, let me give you a bit more context. There have been 4 workshops, a total of 51 papers, so I made it my business to read them. And the last one, like I said, was at ICHCAI. We've held them elsewhere. Perhaps in the future, BICA or another location would be a good home for something like this. We'll see. So I'll start with trying to give you some type of definition for what goal reasoning is, discussing the context of related topics and motivations for why it exists, what my expectations were, and give you an update. Because I gave a presentation on goal reasoning 2 years ago at BICA 14. And then turn attention to some potential directives, and thank you, Tarek, you've already given my advertisement for it. So, I'll use this model, which I've become familiar with. There are a billion models, of course, for how to describe an agent, but this one is simple, and I thank John Boyd for coming up with this OODA loop. And it says that therefore, well, this is an adaptation of this, is not, he would not like this. There's an adaptation of it that says there are 4 steps: observe, orient, decide, and act, and thus the name. There may be other actors in the environment, other event generators such as, oh my gosh, in this case, currents, for example. There's definitely a user involved. And there's a strange thing over here. There's this thing in which suggests that there was a G to start with, a goal that the system was operating on. And the system decided to go ahead and just create a new goal for some reason. The most dangerous thing you can imagine an agent to do, perhaps. It should be constrained somewhere. As you see, the operator can do this as well. The operator is giving it instructions. But the question is why should we allow it to do this, and why should we be interested in something like this? I would argue it's because deliberative autonomy is something that we want our systems to have. Which begs the question as to what a goal is. I think of it in terms of state-based goals. That is, a goal is a set of states in an environment. But as you read through the literature on this topic, you find a very large number of dimensions that are discussed, such as duration, instantaneous versus maintenance goals, or detection time, forensic versus proactive, or at various different levels of abstraction, different modes, as I'll be discussing later. So this is really an open question. There are certainly many types. Let me give you an example of where this might kick in, but I'll resort first to an example in our everyday lives. So here I am at HCAR last week, and I was walking down the hall. I had a presentation which I wanted to attend, and I happened to meet up with Aaron Sloman, who I've been dying to talk about this subject. I got an earful of architecture-based motivation. It was just terrific. He's a terrific guy. But I wasn't planning to meet with him. But as soon as I saw him, and I saw that he was alone, I had a chance to speak with him, my goals changed. This happens to me all the time. Perhaps you find it happens to you, especially at conferences and things of this nature. Your goals change over time. And sometimes in a surprising way. Here's another example for an underwater unmanned vehicle scenario. So I might have my favorite little underwater vehicle exploring an oil plume in order to be able to identify its source, and it might just go ahead and nothing happens during that time period. Alternatively, something might happen. It might come across someone in distress, for example. Fictitious it might be, suffices to explain this. In which case, the question becomes, should it just ignore the situation, or should it respond somehow a bit more competent? Which is, as I point out, what we'd like it to do. It might suggest that, well, we should try something else. We should try to switch our goal from what we were trying to do before to something that takes precedence at this point in time. So there's this notion of goal reprioritization dynamically. That's at the center of this. And it might go off and try and find someone to help out. It seems strange it's going away, but has to communicate. One more example from my perspective. In this case, we've got an operator whose job is to control a flying vehicle automatically, flying truck, if you will, that's doing logistics support or something like that. But what happens when any of these situations crop up, that there are higher winds than were expected, that an adversary perhaps was spotted, that a better approach becomes viable, or higher priority needs arise? What should it do? Vehicle. It's out of range of the operator. The operator can't see this necessarily. Should it react in a different way than it has been? So these are the kinds of things that we're interested in. Again, this notion of giving the system capability to derive new goals dynamically is centric here. And this is how we tend to define it. The ability to dynamically prioritize one's goals, whether it be an agent or otherwise. And the claims here are that it enables an agent to respond competently to notable events, such as the ones I've listed here. More generally, it enables an agent to be intelligent in the first place. This is distinguished from more focused studies on automated planning, for example, which is goals fixed, typically. And I'd like to think it's going to become a very common capability among intelligent agents as we go into the future. So one way to think about it might be is that we've got a matrix now. It's M by N. We've got M goals. We've got N metrics of some sort. I list for notional values, some listed up here. And we have a set of refinement operators that can take that matrix and, with the application of a refinement operator, modify this matrix. Okay, iteratively, and I'll discuss this further. Where the notion is that over time, as new observations take place, new interpretations are made, you can imagine this being continued. Okay, so some thoughts about this cycle as I go back to it. There are many models and many memories that could be applied here. The state memory, a model of the environment, a model of the goals, a model of the operator I just described, etc. I don't mean to limit that. There's one thing I do introduce here, which is this notion of expectations from the planner, which is very crucial to work off of expectation models. And given that that's my presentation of this, it should seem very familiar. This topic has been studied for over 30 years in a variety of different disciplines, such as the ones that I list here. In cognitive architecture, we've seen it forever, of course. There's been contributions at the Go Reasoning workshops recently on this, not just choice. This has been a topic that has been of interest to game AI researchers. It's been long studied in the area of agents, of course, from BDI and beyond. Mike Cox's work on self-aware cognitive agents started me into this, for example. But we find ourselves continually looking and contrasting our work from that work on AI planning. And in particular, to some topics that have been studied there by Rao Kambapati's group, whether it be on oversubscription planning or otherwise, relate to it quite closely. And in the new topic that Malik Gala, Dana Now, and Paolo Traverso are talking about with respect to planning and acting, they're talking about goal reasoning as being a very important topic within that context, in which they're trying to push the field from just thinking about automatic plan generation to that of planning and acting. And they refer to goal reasoning as monitoring or monitoring capability. And of course, the list goes on and on. So I'm not saying it's new. I am saying that there are some very important motivations for it, one of which is this notion of what we've been calling a rational anomaly response, to improve the response to developing situations that threatens an agent's interest in some way, shape, or form. And that probably wasn't the best way to phrase it. It could be with respect to opportunities or affordances as well. What would cause us to be concerned about this? Well, it may be that the user, or I may sometimes refer to them as the operator, is just simply not available, as in one of the examples I described to you already. Maybe they're busy with a situation in which they're looking at too many monitors simultaneously. They just can't be there. You want this thing to think on its own. Suppose that also there are interruptions that take place in military encounters or otherwise. Or you might have an incomplete model of the goal or other models that are similar to it. And I'll get into some of these examples as I go. There are some motivating domain characteristics more generally. They're on the right-hand side here, such as partial observability, dynamic updates, multiple actors, stochastic action outcomes, and continuous action effects, among others. So there are lots of reasons when we're interested in considering introducing this capability to our agents, and these are some of them. These are some of our initial applications. We've been looking at issues of simulated agent control and control of unmanned autonomous vehicles. We've now got We've got a Go Reasoning agent on board controlling an unmanned underwater vehicle. We're not yet looking at long durations missions, we're just getting our feet wet, so to speak. We've been looking at in terms of controlling a set of robots that are participating in disaster relief operations, and we're making initial progress there. And also with respect to assisting in simulation